Good morning and welcome to our year-end Audit and Sage webinar. Thank you for joining us this morning. So what we've got is a 45-minute webinar today where we're just going to run through some of the year-end reminders for the audit, and then also have Sage come and present talking about how best to use Sage and how to get the most out of Sage for your year-end. After we've had two little presentations, then we're going to then move over to a Q&A session, and we would encourage you to ask as many questions as you like. Make use of us whilst we're here. We'll get through as many questions as possible today. During current times, we've also done an awful lot of webinars and additional online content, which I'd recommend that you all try and sign up for as much as possible. Lots more information on our website, on our Education Knowledge Hub. Please do have a look there. If you have time at the end of the webinar, I'll just show you how to get to all that information as well. So you've all managed to log in, hopefully. We're using Microsoft Teams. Hopefully you've probably used this before for some webinars, but if not, somewhere on your screen there will be a Q&A icon. If you're using a smartphone or a tablet, it will probably take you to a second screen where you can look at the questions. If you're just on a laptop, it should just come up as a panel on the side of your screen. If you're logged in as a guest, there's the opportunity to put your name and where you're from there. If you're already logged in on Teams, it should pre-populate that. But of course, if you want to ask any questions anonymously, just click the box and you can do that. We'll then get all those questions come in, we'll moderate them and publish them, so you'll be able to see the published questions. There is an option to like some of the questions, so if there's a question you see somebody has asked that you particularly like, please do like them and we'll know which questions to focus in on. So speaking today, we have got Nat Hughes, Senior Audit Manager from Bishop Fleming. Nat's going to just have a very brief run through some year-end reminders, common hints and tips, and those little bits which can catch you out to hopefully give you some guidance for the year end. After Nat's spoken, we've got Daniel McDonald, who's a Sage consultant, expert in their Sage for Education package. And Daniel's very much going to run through how to use Sage, how to get the most out of it, how to run the reports, and hopefully some really useful hints and tips. I know I've been speaking to Dan before this, and I've already taken quite a lot away from it. So hopefully that'll be really helpful for you. So without further ado, I will pass over to Nat, who will run through some of the audit hints and tips.
Thank you, Ben. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. As we now head towards the last quarter of the financial year to 31st of August, we thought this would be a good time to start thinking about what can be done ahead of the year end. We do recognise that for some trusts, the external audit can be one of the most stressful times of the year, especially as it's combined with the when the schools are returning back to the new academic year after summer holidays. We do hope that this session will be a useful reminder for some of the things that you can consider and start putting in place to make the audit process as smooth as possible for you. We are not going to be considering any special treatments with regards to COVID-19 costs as part of this webinar. There will be another webinar which will follow as soon as the SFA have produced their additional guidance with regards to that. So what can you do ahead of the audit? So firstly, it's important to agree an audit timetable. The audit timetable really should bear in mind the key board meeting dates. This will enable and ensure that everyone is working to an achievable deadline. Secondly, your trial balance. The trial balance is perhaps the most important report to focus on as part of the year-end process. This is because the accounts that are prepared are mapped from the trial balance. And if there are any errors within the trial balance, or if the trial balance doesn't actually balance, this will cause issues when preparing the accounts and potentially lead to management letter points. So we would really encourage you that to look at your trial balance and ideally review the trial balance on a monthly basis as part of producing your management accounts. So what you could do is look at all of your balance sheet codes and then all of the control accounts to make sure they reconcile, for example, your salaries or the VAT control account. If these are reviewed and reconciled on a monthly basis, then when you do get to the year-end process, the process should be much easier and simpler for you. So you should only have to make relevant adjustments that relate to August. The other bit that we thought we'd be using as a good tip for you is essentially, because academies have different funding streams, we thought it would be useful to point you to section 7.4 of the Academy Accounts Direction. It's a really good summary of accounting for government grants, including capital grants, which does sometimes cause a bit of a headache for some academies. Essentially, income should be recognised in the accounts when there are 3 criteria met, and these are the entitlement, it's probable, and you've got the measurement. So very briefly, really, for the income to be included in the accounts, the trust has to be entitled to receive it. You are more probable than not that you will receive the income. And also, you obviously know how much you will get. Otherwise, it's difficult to accrue for any of the income if you don't know how much it is. So those are the 3 essential criteria. However, for some grants, there may be conditions that have to be met for you to be entitled to receive that income or to keep the income. So such conditions really would mean that the grant or part of the grant can't be recognised until a future period. With regards to capital grants, these are generally recognised in full if there are no unconditional entitlement attached to that grant. And any unspent capital grants that you have at the end of the year will simply be reflected on your balance sheet as a restricted fixed asset fund. So essentially, capital grants must be spent on capital projects in line with the terms and conditions of the grant. So it's really important to understand the terms and conditions of that particular funding. So that's something that you can start looking and focusing on that. Some of the other common adjustments that we would expect to see at the year end are, for example, for Pupil Premium. So the funding for July and August tends to be received much later on, so in October. So you'd expect to see some accrued income relating to that. The other one is the Universal Infant Free School Meals funding. So the amount for that will likely to be received in July, and that relates for the first 2 terms of 2020-21 academic year. So in that case, you would be deferring that to the next financial year. So generally, for other deferred income, you just need to start considering what income you've had in advance that meets that criteria. For example, school trips and other such events that would need to be deferred to next year. This is something that you can start doing ahead of the year end just to help you out. The other adjustments we expect to see are, for example, for prepayments. So start considering all of the significant expenditure incurred in the year, which has an element that relates to the following following financial year that needs to be prepaid accordingly. And this would include, for example, any trips for which have been paid in advance. So those you'd have to prepay to next year. Likewise for accruals, so start considering all significant expenditure that you would have been invoiced in the year, and start, the expenditure that you wouldn't have been invoiced in the year that relates to that year that needs to be accrued for. For example, our audit fees for this financial year needs to be accrued for and accounted in the right period. The other one that I wanted to flag up is regards to capital expenditure. So assets purchased in the year which meets your sort of capitalization criteria, they should be obviously separately identified within a separate nominal code in your system. And so to make it easier at the year end for you to account for those as capital expenditure and transfer it to the balance sheet. And aligned to that as well is making sure that you're updating your fixed asset register, which I understand it is a job that tends to be left to the end. But if you can start thinking about these and populating your fixed asset register, and I know Dan will cover that a little bit more, how you can do that within Sage, but these things will help make the process a lot smoother. And so the only other thing that was going to flag up really is to help you with regards to the audit process is start thinking about populating the year-end file. Everyone should by now have received access. If not, please do contact your usual Bishop Fleming contact person to enable to have access to our share file, the extend file. And if you can start approaching through and looking at all of the balance sheet codes on your TB and producing a document that supports the data within the nominal code, that would really help you get ahead of the game with regards to the year end. That's all of the points I was going to really flag up. I'm just conscious of time, so I will pass you over to Dan to cover up the Sage points.
Excellent, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name's Dan MacDonald, an Education Regional Manager from Sage, and I'm going to be taking you through the year-end process and giving you some hints and tips and some things that you might not already know. I'm also going to give you access to some reports that you may not know exist. And after this session, we'll email you a link to where you can access those reports that will be useful for year end. And there is other reports that may be useful throughout the year as well. I'll also cover the fixed asset register and just how it can operate and save you time instead of manually managing it in Excel, but also how you can import those assets in from Excel as well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm first of all going to talk about some key points that you should know about year end within the Sage for Education system. Now, then what we'll do is we're going to move on to a live demonstration. So I'm going to open the software and we're going to look at reports. We're going to look at reconciliations. We're going to look at, well, if you've run your year end and there's final adjustments to be made or there's a correction, well, how can you do that when you know that you can't post transactions into a previous year? And I'll certainly go through that with you. And then at the end, we'll cover fixed assets. If we have any other time, there is some extra points that I can also cover as well, such as the new ESFA chart of accounts and any other key information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a little timer because I'm known to talk quite a bit, and I know we've got tight time constraints on this webinar. So key points that I want to run through, and some of them merge into one. Now, first one, you can only run the year end once in our system. There is no reset button. And that's why it's important that at year end, you run all of your key reports before you actually use that functionality, in that you run your profit and loss, your income and expenditure, your balance sheet, your trial balance, of course. If you're managing your funds via cost centers or by nominal analysis, reports that can also itemize those, which we can also look at in this demonstration, but those, and also an age debtors and age creditors report as at year end. Those types of key reports need to be ran before your year end is ran. If for any reason you wanted to rerun your year end, there is the facility to do a backup and restore, well, a restore. Okay, now the system is backed up automatically at midnight every single night. Okay, you can yourselves, you may not know this, utilize your own backup. So you can actually initialize your own backups within the software via your management console. Now that means that you can take an additional backup to the one that is done at midnight just before you run your year end. And if for any reason you need to restore back to that, you can contact Sage and we'll restore back to that point. Now, some systems you need to run year end to start processing in the new financial year. Now the 3 points, the 3 next points, you don't have to run the year end on the last day of the financial year. You can run the year end process at any time, and you can post transactions dated in your new financial year before you run the year end. Well, all those 3 are linked in that it's right. You don't have to run the year end on the last day of your financial year. You can keep it open. You can start processing any purchase invoices, any funding, gag, and so on that you receive. You can do that in the software without impacting your previous year. And that means, because you can do that, you can run the year-end process at any time that you choose to do so. Now, that also means you can post any type of transaction into your new financial year. However, there is a small caveat in doing that. The first month will probably be fine, but when you get to if you're all academies and your financial year begins in September, well, that means that as at the end of September, you might get into October and you now want to finalize your September accounts. So Board of Trustees, governors, yourselves, that is the final figures for September. Those transactions that you've entered, because you haven't ran year end, they will be in the system, but they won't have been actually fully posted to the nominal ledgers. They'll be posted in as what's known as a waiting posting. It'll be sitting floating there, waiting to drop into the system when you run your year end and open that first period in your new financial year. So yeah, it's great. You can start posting a new financial year. You haven't yet closed your old year down, but if you want to do any management reports for a period, the system isn't going to produce them because the transactions haven't physically been posted to the actual ledgers in that sense. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, I'd like to run management reports, but that means I'm going to have to run my year end, maybe at some point in September. My my auditors aren't going to give me any final adjustments, maybe until October, maybe if something drastic happened at the latest November. In that case, that's fine, because what you can still do is you could run your year end, and then when you get those final adjustments, there is the facility in the system to actually post those adjustments into a previous financial year, okay, which will adjust the year-end figures for you automatically. So what that means is you can have a system where you can start processing the new financial year, maybe a little bit into it, close off your financial year, but still be safe in the knowledge that you can make final adjustments to that previous financial year, and that won't affect your income and expenditure going into the new financial year. Okay, so the final point on there is you can't post usual transactions into a previous financial year. That's true. You can't post a purchase invoice. You can't post a sales invoice. You can't post this normal journal. But there is one type of transaction that will allow you to do that, and I'm going to show you that in the software, and that's what's called a previous year journal entry. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump into the system, and we're going to explore some of these items I've just covered and a lot more. Okay, so this should look all familiar to you, this system, because it is the Sage 200 Sage for Education system that I've just logged into. So it should look very familiar. Now, previously there on the webinar, we've talked about the importance of running reports before conducting a year end, and that's where I'd like to start before we go any further. Now, a key report that was mentioned was trial balance. Okay, now the system comes with standard trial balance. So if we go into the nominal area and we go to reports, there's several trial balance reports that we can run, and there's even ones for the prior year. So, and that links in with that. You can run your year end, and then what you can do is you can make your prior year adjustments once you get them, and you can still run a trial balance for your previous year that will pick up those adjustments that you've made, even though the year end's been ran. Now, these standard reports, even if I run the summary one, operate in one way. Now, what I can do is I can run them for a particular cost center department. Now, depending on how your trust is structured, some trusts will have their cost centers as funds, and some will have them as their schools if they're in a multi-academy trust that operates a centralized ledger, a one central bank account. Now, what that means is you can run the trial balance by fund, by school if you choose to. Using the in option allows you to use a tick box method to select what you'd like to run it for. But in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to run the trial balance for the entire school or the entire trust. So what you can see here is this is my full trial balance, and it is very detailed. Even though I've run the summary version of the trial balance that comes as standard with the system, what you'll notice is it breaks it down by cost centers and departments. Okay, so to give an example of that, if we scroll further down and we look at some of these codes. So what I've got here is a 5,000 code for curriculum supply expenditure for English. There's a balance for this period of £5, and the year-to-date figure is the same. But you'll notice that the 5,000 code also exists again, and it exists for maths. And it exists for maths, again, £5 for this period and £15 for the year-to-date. Okay, now, even though we've got one ledger code, which is 5,000, it has been split down by departments and cost centers, and the standard trial balance that's with the system gives you that breakdown. Okay, now this is definitely a useful report because when you're looking at this, it means that you'll be able to see the actual trial balance broken down by your funds or by your school's ledgers. Now, however, when it comes to actually having a trial balance that's a lot more simplified, you may be able to spot, you know, why is the balance on that code so large? Instead of it being split out across the page, what you can do is the system comes with a series of reports that we don't actually put in there as standard. They're sitting there ready for you to download. Okay, and a lot of them do help you with your year-end process. And they're available to you, and they're available to you in the actual help menu. So in the actual system help, I'll just come out of there. And if I just type in install reports, and this is the same help menu that you have access to, we've got an article there called Install Additional Reports with the Custom Report Manager. And what you'll notice there is there's instructions on how to download reports into the system. But what it does, it gives you additional reports that you can utilize and download, from new balance sheets to nominal ledger reports, trial balance reports. And these are all available right now for you as a customer to download. Now, what I've went and done is I've downloaded the trial balance consolidated. And when I download this, I can download it as a portrait or a landscape. So by clicking on this link, all that's going to do is add it to my computer. And then what I can do is I can use this article to know where to go in the system to just quickly upload it. Now, what that report will do is something slightly different to the normal trial balance. So to give an example, if I go into the nominal ledger again and I run the trial balance, in my custom reports folder, anything that I upload goes into the custom reports folder, even though it's something we've created at Sage ourselves. So what you'll see in there is I now have a consolidated trial balance, which I've uploaded. Now, for the keen eye amongst you, you'll notice I've got more in there than just a consolidated trial balance. I've got extra income and expenditure statements, some outturn reports. Some of them aren't on that website. However, we will upload them for you for no extra charge. If you get in contact with myself or my colleague Stephen Jones, we can arrange a time slot to quickly dial in and just upload, show you them first and say, would these be useful, and then upload them for you, because there is income and expenditure statements in there that are different to the standard ones in the system and some other outturn reports. So if I click on the consolidated trial balance, now, if I run this, instead of having it broken down by department and cost center, what you can see now is, even though we had before a 5,000 code for curriculum supplies that was broken down by multiple cost centers and multiple departments, and we noticed the balance on that was £5 for one cost center and £5 for another. So the total balance now is £10, and there is no breakdown. So this is a trial balance for the entire system, but just that nominal ledger view. Okay, so it's very similar to a trial balance that you might run in one of our industry accounting packages, such as Sage 50 Accounts or Sage Accounting, where it doesn't give you a broken down by the department or cost center. It just gives you the ledger code breakdown. Okay, so hopefully you'll find that report very useful. Now, what you should be doing with these reports is, when you run them for your up to period 12 as at year end, and you're also going to do the same for your balance sheet and your income and expenditure, especially on the trial balance, what you need to be doing is identifying your control accounts. So we've already talked about VAT, others like your debtors and creditors. If you're unsure which ones the system is using as your control accounts, here's a quick tip. If in the system you just type in the search menu default, it'll come up with default nominal accounts. So when you click on that, it gives you what the system is using as default for your income and expenditure and your balance sheet. So if we look at the balance sheet here, I can see what is the system using for my control accounts. So 2,100 for my creditors, my debtors is 1,100. My VAT input, my VAT output, they're all listed in there. Prepayments, accruals, your retained earnings, they're all listed. And so if you're unsure, come in here, have a look at which codes they relate to. Then when you run your trial balance, you can go quickly to that and you can analyze it to make sure that it doesn't look overinflated. If you've ran a trial balance for the previous month and then it's jumped up by £1 million, then there's something wrong. You haven't received £1 million, you haven't spent £1 million. It's definitely something to look at. Now, there's several ways you can look at your control accounts. Now, you can either, like you will know already, is drill down into your nominal ledger, and every single screen within the software is drillable and exportable to Excel. So if I've drilled down into my creditors control account and I want this list of transactions in Excel, I can export this selection or everything by right-clicking into Excel to try and find a transaction that might be causing a discrepancy. Now, while we're talking about creditors and debtors, really, that should always align back to your age debtors and age creditors reports. So what you should be doing is, and that's just opening an Excel, by the way, it's put those transactions in there. Now, also on top of running the standard trial balance, profit and loss balance sheet, I mentioned age debtors and age creditors. Now, not only will it tell you what's outstanding as at year end, but it's also a great check to check those balances against what the balance is in your creditors and debtors control accounts, because they should match. The only reason that they wouldn't match is if you yourself have physically used the creditors or debtors control account to post an adjustment of some kind. Now, it might be a legitimate adjustment. It might have been given to you to post at year end for some reason or another, but you need to make sure that that is correct, because usually they would balance and they would be correct. Now, what you can do is there is two methods of running age debtors and age creditors. And once again, you'll be used to running the standard Sage for Education age creditors and age debtors reports. Now, just like I said before, free of charge, there is different style age debtors and age creditors available for you to download that are more easy on the eye, okay, than the landscape views that come as standard with the system. So you'll notice I've got 4 in here, and 2 of them, these 2, they're still called summary and detailed. These are ones that I've actually installed into the software. So if I run this one, as you can see here, instead of being in a landscape view, it's given me it in a more portrait view, which is easier to understand. And it's because it's a detailed report, it's given me the supplier, their outstanding invoices, the balance just for that supplier. And then at the bottom of the report, the total for the whole report. Now that total, if I've ran that as at my year end, should balance against my debtors or creditors control account, depending on which report you've ran. Now, if you wanted to quickly just make sure, instead of having to use those reports to, go through every item, what the system has has a quick method of reconciling those accounts. Okay, so again, using the search menu, I've typed in reconciliation. So what reconciliation allows me to do is go to creditors and debtors reconciliation. So using the creditors reconciliation, I can pick the accounting period, which of course is going to be period 12. And it will itemize that period and look at the ones before that, and it will make sure that there is no discrepancies. So what it does, it looks at in this case, my purchase ledger, and gives me all the payments and receipts and opening balances for that and closing balances. And then it gives me, as you can see, my nominal ledger. And in this case, I have no debits or credits posted directly to the creditors control account, and hence there is no discrepancy. Now, if there was a discrepancy that is found, the great thing about this is it finds it for you. And when you highlight that discrepancy, it itemizes the transactions that make up that discrepancy. So you can quickly look at those and go, are they correct? Should they be adjusted? Should they not have been in there? I've posted it to the wrong ledger code. Should I journal those out of there onto a different nominal code? So I would definitely at year end utilize the creditors and debtors reconciliation inquiry screens. And to get there, I just use the quick search button in the top left hand corner and type in the word reconciliation, and it will find those for me. Now, once you're happy and you've done that, of course, within the period end routines, you're going to have to close all of your accounting periods. Now, a recent update in the last year took a bit of a pain away from that, because previously you had to close each period's different area of the ledgers. So all mine are open at the moment. But what I can do now is there is a button to actually close a whole period en masse. Okay, so I can close each period if I haven't already up to period 12, and the year end can only be ran if you've closed all of those periods. Okay, so year end has to be ran only when the periods have been closed. Once the periods are closed, you're going to run your year end routine. It's a very simple procedure. You don't have to do anything yourself. It'll just ask, have you ran your final trial balance, your final financial statements, any other reports, which of course it is relating to age debtors, age creditors reports as well. Once you've ran that, that's your year end complete, because what it will do is it will automatically journal all of your income and expenditure codes down onto the retained earnings on your balance sheet. once that process has been finished, it might be a month later, and you might think to yourself, right, I need to make an adjustment to the previous financial year, or my auditor has handed me some final adjustments. Well, that's perfectly fine. And you know, that's something that happens, you know, very frequently. You know, in our system, you know, you might have your opening balances. We know your opening balances for a new financial year may need adjusted, and certainly if you were even new to the system, we would never recommend putting your opening balances in as soon as you go live. We'd always recommend you putting them in maybe, you know, when they're finalized, maybe a month or two afterwards, because the system is flexible and allows you to put in opening balances or adjustments retrospectively. Now, to do that, within the nominal area, you have a specific transaction type under Enter Transactions called Previous Year Journal Entry. Now, this previous year journal entry operates like a normal journal. However, it allows you to post it into the previous financial year. And what it automatically does is it does the adjustment, but then still clears it back down onto your balance sheet. So it'll affect the, you know, the income or expenditure account for the previous financial year. So you can still see that on a report or on a trial balance, but then it will clear it down to your retained earnings for you automatically. So you're not having to do any manual adjustments yourself. So the previous year journal entry is your safety net. It's you run a year end and you need to make an adjustment. Don't worry, you're not penalized. You can still do that with the previous year journal entry. Now, when it comes to the other processes to look at, such as, now, when I was speaking to your firm of accountants, they were talking about fixed assets, and they said that a lot of clients manage those in Excel. Now, certainly, this software has a dedicated fixed asset module. Now, again, using the quick search, I've typed in fixed assets. Now, these fixed assets can be period or they can be annual, and it will automatically calculate depreciation and post it to the ledgers. Now, it will be important if you do set them up in here that the balance sheet and P&L codes that you use against your assets do mimic the ones that you've already got set up on your balance sheet in the system. Okay. And you're thinking, well, I've got a lot in Excel. I don't want to have to enter them all manually. Well, there is an import button where you can import in your assets directly from a CSV Excel file. And again, in that help menu that I was using before, there is an article and a template on how to do that. And of course, our Sage technical support will also guide you through that process if you were to call us regarding that. And again, that just helps towards the year end because it's automating the depreciation postings at the end of the year. It's keeping your net book value correct. Of course, there may be some adjustments to that. Again, your auditors might have suggested or given you, and again, that can be adjusted. So that's been a very quick whistle-stop tour of year end. One thing to note that I forgot to mention is that if you run, if you don't run your year end and you want to see the transactions that have been posted, okay, in the new financial year, you actually have, again, using the quick search in the top left hand corner, I've typed in the word waiting. You have a waiting postings report. And this, again, by cost center, by department, by nominal, will give you a list of all the transactions that are sitting in that new financial year that are waiting to drop into the system. So I hope that's been helpful, anyone. And what we'll do now is we'll move to the Q&A. That's
great. Thank you, Dan. So we've had a few questions come in. Probably the first one is from Michaela. Said, "Hi, how can you adjust incorrect balances on the trial balance without affecting the nominal, i.e. bank balances?" So I'm not quite sure exactly what you mean there, Michaela. I'm guessing what you mean is, the balances aren't quite right, but maybe some of the individual bank accounts themselves in between the split isn't quite right. I'm not sure what you make of that, Dan, if you have any idea there. So I think it's probably the bank balance is a little bit out and we need to just tidy it up.
Yeah, so if you post to the nominal ledger code of the bank account directly, it will not affect the bank balance in the cash book, so it won't adjust that. So the only way really would be to post an actual cash book transaction. Now, if you've run your year end, of course, it won't allow you to post that cash book transaction. It'll only allow a nominal ledger journal. So yeah, so I guess that's why it's important. And we've never said it's essential, but I suppose you've answered a question there. It's important to reconcile your bank account at year end before you run your year end process, to make sure that year end bank account balance is correct, because it won't be able to be adjusted by a previous year journal. That's going to carry forward, and the only thing you could really do is maybe just post a cash book transaction to move that balance to a suspense account, Miss Poston's account, and then figure out what to do at the next year end, or maybe your auditors who are in the room right now can give you some advice on what to do with that balance. But certainly one thing I didn't mention was the importance of bank reconciliation at year end, and I suppose that's a reason why it should be part of the year-end process.
And Nat, I'm sure you'd have an opinion on if we see kind of those corrections being made to the bank account, in what sort of evidence you'd like to see on approval of those, I suppose, Nat.
Yes, absolutely. So whatever adjustments that you do make and put through the system, you should always maintain a supporting documentation to explain what those adjustments relate to. So this will be all part of the sort of transactions adjustments that you put through, and include that within your year-end file documentation. Or at least have it ready so that if it's picked up as part of the questions that are asked by the auditors, you've got it ready to support the adjustments.
Brilliant, thank you, Nat. Another one of the questions is one of the changes to do with our year-end file this year. So we've asked for remote access into Sage. So the question is probably for you, Nat, but maybe you can jump in as well, Steve. Is how will we as auditors make use of the remote access to the software?
Yes, so I think if I start, but then perhaps Dan will also want to contribute at some point. But yes, so by us having access to your system, it will really save you time in producing the age debtors, the age creditors report and the nominal ledger, because we would be able to go in and download those documents directly ourselves. But the one thing I would just encourage is, rather than just not doing anything, is make sure they all reconcile and the file is, it agrees back to your TB before, before you obviously close down and get it ready for us. So that absolutely having access to the file should hopefully reduce time for us and for yourselves in compiling the year-end information. Steve, I don't know whether you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, I'll just say, obviously, I've been involved in coming up with the year-end file, and one of the reasons that we put in about giving remote access is just to be more efficient. So the main thing is to, as Nat says, make sure at least everything reconciles. But again, we understand that it's sometimes quite an onerous task to run all these reports and upload them. And especially if we're asking you for reports that you might not necessarily run very often, or you might not quite understand what we're asking. It's just a tool that makes it hopefully more efficient for everyone, so we can get all the reports we need and make it a more efficient process.
That's great. Thanks, Stephen. That I'm conscious that we've pretty much hit the end of the webinar. And there was a couple of questions we didn't get to. If you give your name and details, if there's one specific for your software, we can try and get back to you on that one. So I guess thank you very much for joining us today. The one thing I just wanted to show you before we do go is just our education hub. This is on our website. Very easy to find on the website, but it's where all of the information, all of the blogs, links to all our previous webinars will all be available for you. Lots of useful information on there. So if you're not on there already, I would recommend you check that out. Also, if you haven't been getting our newsletters and our invites to these sorts of events, if you're looking at any one of our blogs, for example, this was the procurement policy notice blog. Just here on the side, we have got the where you can sign up. You can click to get in touch, and you'll be able to sign up for our newsletters and all other invites. So I'd just like to say thank you very much to Daniel for helping us out today, and I think I've learned something about Sage there as well, so hopefully that will help me, and we hope that you've found some useful information there. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you again on our next webinar.